10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 231. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 231 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Hope you're all doing well out there as always, and welcome back in. This week we're going to continue our series on learning tunes in multiple keys, and we are going to learn a much more difficult tune this week. We're going to go to a Charlie Parker tune, if you can believe it, and hopefully you've memorized Sunny Moon for Two in a couple of different keys, if not all 12. That'll be a really good warm-up and thing to get your brain going before we actually start to practice the material in this episode. So before we jump in, I just want to remind everybody that they can get the PDF to this episode and every other episode that we've ever done by going to our Patreon site and supporting us with a donation of either $3 or $5 every month, and you get different things depending on what amount of money you pledge to us every month. And I want to thank some brand new people that have joined up this week. Thank you to our new $5 patrons, Craig and Paul. And I also want to thank a couple of people for editing their pledge up to $5. Kelly, David, and Yue. I want to thank you so much for editing your pledge up to that $5 level. And I'm sure you're loving your audio examples and your backing tracks. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, you can go over to our Patreon site by going to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon banners, and everything will be explained to you once you go over there and you sign up to pledge your support. You do get instant access to everything. So thanks to all the patrons, thanks to the new patrons, and thank you to everybody that's supporting this show. We are a listener-supported podcast, so all of our income comes directly from you, the listener, that enjoys listening to this each and every week. All right, let's jump into the episode. So this week we're going to talk about kind of a different concept and what to do when a tune gets a little bit more complicated, and how do you memorize something that's a little bit longer and has a little bit more going on in it. So we're going to be working on the Charlie Parker composition Au Prévave, which is really based over an F concert blues. So it's not really long, it's only 12 bars, but it is way more involved than what we did over Sunny Moon for Two. I mean, we talked about the fact that Sunny Moon for Two is literally just a 4-measure phrase, and that phrase only used a descending minor pentatonic scale. So this is, very different. Now, I got this idea because in graduate school, I took a advanced jazz improvisation course. And one of the things that the teacher made us do was every week we had to come in and play this tune in a different key. And it really opened my eyes to how to do that. He didn't really give us any guidance on how we're going to put it in all 12 keys. So you kind of had to go through it yourself, figure out what you wanted to do. And basically the system that I'm showing you this week is what I came up with in that course. And it really worked for me. And I know it worked for several other of my classmates. So I think that this is a pretty tried and true method for learning a tune like this. So let's cover the basics and sort of the process of this. So what we're going to do is we are going to analyze the tune first, and then we're going to use a number system to do our initial memorization of the tune. Now, I think it's really important to point out that I am a very analytical person. So the way that I learn things is by analyzing them thoroughly, writing stuff down on paper. And then what I do is I take my analytical thought process and I try to morph it into a way that's more sustainable. So basically what I'm doing is when I'm slowing things down and analyzing them really deeply, doing a number system thing, I'm basically just getting the sound of the tune into my ears in a way that works with my brain. So through analyzing it, spending some time with it, hearing it a bunch of times, eventually it just gets into my ears. And you have to realize that that's the end goal with this. You're not really going to get anywhere if you're trying to count all this stuff and put numbers on everything at the end of the day. The number system is just kind of a way to break the surface, to make it a little bit less intimidating, to understand that there is a way to analytically figure this out. But at the end of the day, we want it to be natural, memorized. You have to spend a ton of time with a tune like this before you can hope to put it in a bunch of different keys. So hopefully that makes sense. You know, a lot of people will say, oh, you can never be a good jazz musician by being analytical. It has to be natural and inspired. And that is kind of true. But I think if your brain works the way that my brain works, analyzing something can be the key to everything. You know, you have to go through that analytical step before you can hope to get to any of those other quote unquote higher level steps. So anyways, that's my little rant on analyzing this stuff. If that's not the way that your brain works, then you're going to have to kind of seek out a different way of doing this. But anyways, let's jump into the meat and potatoes. So if you look at your PDF for this week, I have the melody written out and I have a number written above each note. So here's the thing. This tune is mostly diatonic to the key of F, which is really nice because now we can analyze it in a pretty easy way without having to like change keys or do anything like that. We can analyze the entire melody with only a few notes that are outside of the key of F. So let's go over this first little phrase. Now, the other thing that's really tough about this tune is that the phrasing is not very clear. There's no like clearly delineated end to one phrase, beginning of another. So we're going to kind of go through this and talk about the phrasing, where I think the phrases start and end. So here's what I think is the first phrase. Goes, and I think that that first three measures is what I would consider the first phrase. So what you'll notice, what I have written over the first four notes, 1, 7, 1, 5. So that's F, E, F, C in the key of F. Now the second four notes is where it starts to get a little bit hairy, right? We see our first non-diatonic tone. And what you will notice is that I call it sharp 2. So I'm thinking like this. 3, sharp 2, 3, 5. Now, sharp 2, you're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. When's the last time you saw something called a sharp 2? But here's the thing. When I'm analyzing this stuff, I'm being extremely, extremely literal with what I see on the page. So in the key of F, here's what I'm seeing. A, G sharp, A, C. So really that note, that G sharp, is actually functioning as a sharp 2. It's a lower neighbor tone of the 3. We see 3, then that lower neighbor tone, then 3 again. So I am thinking about it, and it is notated as a sharp 2. So that's what's really going to make sense in my brain when I go to change keys, right? Now, the next grouping of notes, I have 7, 2, 1, 5, 2, 1, 3, 4, 3, 1, 2, flat 7. So I have that one non-harmonic tone, non-diatonic tone in that flat 7, and I'm calling it like I see it. Now you will also notice that I am calling the 2s. I'm not calling them 9s, right? And most of the time we call the 2 9, but when I'm analyzing a melody, you'll notice that that G is most of the time functioning as a 2, not a 9. It doesn't sit up on top of the scale. It's right inside the scale. So I am going to literally call it a 2 because, again, I'm taking things very, very literally when I'm analyzing this tune and figuring out my number system. So here's my suggestion to you. I would learn that first phrase, get comfortable with it, get it so that you can play it without looking at the sheet and you understand the texture. And then I would use the number system to figure it out in another key. Maybe go up by a fourth or go up by a half step or go up by a whole step. Whatever you want to do, it's fine. Just pick a second key and play just that first phrase in the new key. just looking at the numbers. Okay. Now, here's the really important part. You've got to get good enough at this to move beyond the numbers, right? So you want to use the numbers as a gateway to learn it in whatever new key you want to learn it in, and then quickly move away from those numbers and use your ears. Use your ears. Now that you know you can do it, you know you can play it in that other key by using the numbers, now use your ears and play it. And then what you would do is you would basically just work your way through the rest of the tune using that number system to create that bridge between the first key and whatever key you're going to. And then eventually what you'll find is that you can play the melody in that brand new key without much trouble. And here's the beautiful thing about this. You could kind of mirror what I did. Was over a 12-week course. I played it in a different key every week until I knew all 12 keys. And the nice part was when I was doing those, 8th through 12th keys, it was super easy. It took like no time at all. The first 4 keys were like murder. I mean, that was so hard. I was so stressed out about my first couple of playing tests in that course because it was really difficult, and being put on the spot in front of the teacher, it was very, very intimidating. But I'm really glad I did it. And that teacher was one of my best teachers that I ever had. And by the time I got to the end of the course, I was just like zipping through the keys. He also had us do a rhythm changes composition every week too. So we had to put 2 tunes into a brand new key every week. And it was a lot. I spent a lot of time in the practice room that semester. Very, very glad that I did it. So challenge yourself. Challenge yourself to just put this first phrase into 2 keys first, and then try to work your way through the rest of the tune. And then once you get through that first new key, that's not the original key, it's going to be a real shot in the arm to your confidence. You're going to feel really good about, working with other keys. And then, like I said, it just keeps getting easier and easier, which is really fun. All right. So if you have any questions, definitely ask me in the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Community Facebook group. Best way to get in touch with me. I've had a lot of people asking me questions about episodes over there, and it's just an easy way for me to get back to everybody in one place. All right, make sure you go and get signed up for Patreon. You are going to get a lead sheet with all the numbers written in this week, and that should be a good way to get you started. You can look at the rest of the melody and see what I've written in for numbers, and you can start your journey to putting this pretty difficult tune into multiple keys. All right, everybody, hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time with a brand new episode. Have a good weekend, stay healthy, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.